Hey guys, it's Phoebe. I come to you with another interior design video, and today I want to talk about how to make minimalism cozy because I feel like minimalist interior design is usually kind of synonymous with like all white, sleek furniture, like sleek white marble, blah blah blah, or just a home that doesn't have much in it at all, just like blank slate with just a bed and a dresser, what have you. And I feel like cozy is often synonymous with having a lot of things, having packed bookshelves, tons of personal items everywhere, walls never left blank, lots and lots of blankets around, lots of color mixing and tone mixing and material mixing. And I feel like cozy also isn't really synonymous with like light and bright. And I think it totally can be. And I think those two, I don't think cozy and minimalist are mutually exclusive in a home design. And so I kind of want to talk about some of the ways that when I get a house of my own, I plan on making it minimalist, but also super cozy, and ways that you can have a very minimal home, minimal design, minimal elements, while keeping it really cozy and inviting and not sterile. First thing I want to talk about that is pretty self-explanatory is textures and texture mixing. If you don't want to color mix a lot in your home, or you don't even want to have a lot of colors in your home, I really don't think it should be sleek if you want it to be cozy. Sleek and cozy are like kind of opposites in my mind, and so I feel like if you want to have a minimalist home that's also cozy, it needs to have a lot of textures, and they can be really small, subtle textures like linen, wood, cotton. Maybe you texture your walls a really subtle like orange peel texture rather than completely flat walls. Maybe you have intricate trim and baseboards. Even something as simple as rugs count as texture. And I think texture mixing can also be done in a really subtle way by mixing different furniture pieces. And what I mean by that is having collected furniture pieces rather than buying everything new all at once, or everything from the same store, or definitely not buying a set like a dresser and bedside table set that are the exact same kind of piece that are meant to go together. I think part of making a space cozy is having it feel very subtly collected and like collected over time, and each piece means something rather than just curating everything all at once. I think that's where it can start to feel a little bit sterile and not very personal. That leads right into my next point, which is adding personal items. I think that you can very much get away with not having much decor at all and still having it be cozy if the things that you do have out are very personal to you. So that can just be a bunch of books under your bedside table or at the end of your bed, or always having flowers out, or even something as simple as keeping a mug next to your bed that you made or that your friend made or that you bought somewhere and it holds a lot of meaning to you. I think because it's a minimalist space, the little things that you do choose to keep out and display should hold a lot of meaning. Personal items are what make homes cozy, so I think any chance you get, anything you do leave out should be personal, should not just be something that you bought at the same time as everything else in your home. Next thing I want to say is that minimalism does not always mean white. At least when I picture minimalism, that is the color I think of, is just white everything, all white everything. And I think that's somewhere you can really go wrong if you're trying to make a space cozy, and I don't think you necessarily have to have a lot of color in your space to make it cozy, but I would just ask yourself, and this is actually a graphic design principle that we were always taught, is that if you're going to use white, why not use a yellowy white or a pinky white or a really light blue gray or an ivory or a really light beige? There are so many different whites that you can use, and I think a stark white is very sterile and not cozy at all, whereas something so similar like an ivory or a really light cream is very cozy and I think can make the absolute biggest difference. I also think you absolutely can play with color, like true color that is not near white. And if you want your space to be cozy, I think that where there is color, it should be warm color. I think just warm colors in general tend to take you further away from sterile and more into cozy. That's a very kind of intuitive, self-explanatory tip. Warm colors can absolutely make the difference between something that's colorful and feels kind of maximalist, or cool tone and feels kind of sterile and like corporate versus is a home that feels really lovingly curated and designed. The next thing I think you should do if you want to keep a minimal home but still have it feeling super cozy is to make sure you have a mix of old and new. I think that too much old can make it feel not very minimalist, can make it almost feel like even in your wardrobe, if you start to have too many vintage items, it feels kind of like dirty almost. And that's not to say there's anything wrong with vintage and thrifting. I love that for home and for my wardrobe, but it's never the vibe for me when everything I have on is old or everything in my home is thrifted. I do like to have some kind of clean, simple, new elements, and new can even mean homemade. It doesn't have to mean a piece of furniture from Macy's. It can be a high quality new piece if that's in your budget. It can be a homemade new piece if that's in your budget. It can be something from Target if that's what you want. And I think having all new things in your home is where it can start to feel sterile and impersonal. So I think old things, thrifted things, vintage collected things help you on the cozy side of design, whereas new things help you on the minimal side of design. So I think mixing the two is a perfect way to ensure that your home is both minimal and cozy. My next tip that I thought of is to put the pattern on the floor. So I don't think you need to be afraid of playing with pattern. It can be a very, very simple pattern, but I think a way to keep it minimal is to have that pattern on the floor. So what I mean by that is either having patterned tile or a rug or a painted floor, any details on the ground, and that way you can keep your furniture and your walls very minimal and it'll still feel cozy because you have that bit of pattern on the floor. But because it's on the floor, it doesn't feel in your face or like cluttered at all. The other way that you can play with pattern in a way that keeps your room feeling super minimal is to add the pattern in the places that are impermanent, the little places that are impermanent. So having no pattern anywhere except for your pillowcases or except for a throw blanket or even a cushion on a chair. Another option is to ignore all of that and have pattern and just make sure your pattern is simple. I think that stripes and gingham always read minimalist to me. And so with patterns like that, I think you can get away with having them on all of your bedding, striped bedding across your duvet, your sheets, your pillowcases, or all gingham bedding, or like I said, rugs and curtains. I think being afraid of pattern can really hinder you if you want your space to feel inviting and cozy and personal. And I don't think you need to be afraid of it if you're more of a minimalist. What I will say is that if you do want to keep your space looking super simple, I don't think you should mix patterns. I wouldn't do one pattern bedding and a different pattern pillow and a different pattern on the curtains. I would stick to just one pattern so that it really does stand out and command attention and adds a lot of character, but you're not getting that eclectic vibe that pattern mixing brings. My next tip is to just think outside the box. I always tell myself when I'm trying to identify my taste and what I actually like, whether it's in fashion or in interior design, forget everything you know about design. You can build your vibe from the ground up. You don't have to do what other people like. You don't have to do what most people do. You can literally forget everything you know and build your home from the ground up, piece by piece, exactly how you want it. If you don't want a bed frame, you don't have to have a bed frame. Something like a bed frame seems like a necessity because most people have one, but if you prefer the look of just having a low to the ground mattress or sleeping pad, that's fine. You can do that. If you prefer to sit on the floor and eat, you can have a low to the ground table and not have chairs. You can do whatever you want. Forget everything you know. I think a less out there version of that would be something like remembering that you don't have to have speckled or veiny marble countertops. You can do something like butcher block. You can do metal countertops. You can do solid tile countertops. You don't have to do multi-toned marble or granite just because most people do. And you definitely don't have to do sleek all white marble just because that's what a lot of minimalist designers do. You can do minimal in your own way. You don't have to do patterned tile in your kitchen or bathroom. You can do hardwood. You can do painted floors. You can do cement floors. You don't have to have a gallery wall of lots of paintings and photos. You don't even have to have one big piece of art on your wall. You can have a tiny collection of 3 really small prints or just one standalone tiny photograph hanging on your wall. Or you can just tape up one piece of watercolor paper. It seems counterintuitive because what you always learn and what you're always told is that if you have a big blank wall, you should fill it, or you should at least have scale appropriate art. But forget everything you know, you don't have to. It can look really cool to have a big blank wall and just have one little area of a couple small photographs or prints or drawings, or even just one hanging alone. Sometimes that is just as cozy as having a whole gallery wall. Sometimes it's just as personal because everyone's eye will go directly to that piece. And if that piece means something to you, that's really special. If you want to feel like your home is super simple and clean and clutter-free, that's amazing. And just remember that you still have so many design elements to play with. It doesn't mean that you have fewer design elements to work with, if that makes sense. Maximalist designers start with a blank slate, and then they're super intentional about pattern mixing and color blocking and texture mixing and wall art and quirky collected pieces. As someone with minimalist design style, you can do the exact same thing. You can be super intentional about choosing your patterns and color blocking and texture mixing. You can be very intentional about what you choose to hang on your walls and about what personal collected pieces you choose to leave out and display. You have all of those choices to play with, even when you want to keep your design super simple. Just because you're a minimalist doesn't mean that your interior design style is already decided for you. You don't have to have all white everything with clean and pristine style furniture pieces. Your space can be extremely personal and cozy and reflect your unique taste, all while satisfying your craving for simplicity. That is pretty much everything I've been thinking about with regards to my personal minimalist interior design style, and I hope this helps. If you get anything out of this video, I just hope you remember that you really can design your home from the ground up exactly how you want it. Forget everything you know about how other people have designed their homes. Choose what feels good to you, and your space will turn out cozy because you have made intentional choices about each and everything in it, rather than identifying as a minimalist and therefore saying, okay, well, I want to keep everything light and bright and white because I want it to feel clean. You do not have to do that. You can do that if that's what feels best to you, but I hope this kind of opened your eyes to all of the different ways that you can do one interior design style. You cannot get it wrong, so you may as well choose what you like. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you want to, and I'll see you guys in a few days with another video. Bye guys. This one has been with me the entire video.